Hi, I'm Mario Arroyave with Utmost Performance Coaching. Today, I want to talk to you guys about what should we be doing maybe a couple of days or the day before our event, and then on the day of the event, before we go to compete, before we go to do that grand fondo, or we go to do that race, or whatever it happens to be. Specifically, what I'm talking about are two rides. The first ride that we're going to talk about is an opener session. And basically, as the title suggests, that's really what we're trying to do. That's the main goal of an opener session, which is basically to do some kind of a workout that's short in duration, that is going to kind of ping and bring online the different energy systems that you're going to need to call to action during your event. Now, keep in mind, the opener session, it's not to be a full-blown workout. It is not meant to be something that is going to exhaust you, because you're going to do this session maybe the day before the event, or at the very earliest, 2 days before the event. So it's just basically kind of a priming the pump kind of a workout, where you may do some threshold intervals, but they won't be as long as they normally are. You might do some VO2 max intervals, but again, they won't be that long. Get in a couple of sprints and call it a day. You're in and out in, let's call it an hour and 15 minutes at the very most, and you just want to make sure that everything's working. Another nice thing about the opener session is get that equipment on that you're going to be using on race day, and just make sure that everything's working. Make sure your bike is shifting well. Make sure batteries are charged up. Make sure that chain isn't skipping because of a worn out cassette or chain rings, or the chain itself. Just these little things that you can kind of really hone in and lock in, because at the end of the day, that opener session, we just kind of have a mental, kind of emotional component to it, where we say to ourselves, you know what, I've run through everything, I've checked everything off with body, with machine, and everything seems to be okay. The other thing I want to talk about is, okay, now we're at the day of the competition, and now obviously it would be wise for us to do a warm-up. What are we looking to do during a warm-up? Really, it's the same thing as the opener session. We're just wanting to make sure that these systems that we're going to call into play, we want to make sure that they're nice and warmed up and firing the way that we need them to. One of the things that I want to make sure that I mention about a warm-up, and I'm sitting down, pay attention because this is important. I want to make sure that you understand your warm-up needs to be long enough in duration to bring the aerobic component online. What do I mean by that? Aerobic component, if you've been watching the content that I've been putting out, I talk a lot about zone 2. I talk a lot about riding easy, that aerobic component, that base. But here's the thing. It operates like a diesel engine. When you start up a diesel engine, you can't just pull out of the driveway and begin driving. You have to let that engine warm up. And so the same thing with the aerobic component. It takes a while for that aerobic component to come online. And if you don't bring it online properly with a thorough warm-up, what ends up happening is you have to call these other systems into action earlier. And what ends up happening is at the end of that competition, when you're really wanting to tap into the VO2 max, the threshold, the neuromuscular, those kinds of things, you've had to use them and utilize them a little bit earlier maybe than you would have, because the aerobic component could have taken some of that action off of your plate, but because of an improper warm-up, you were having to use it earlier than you would have liked. And so making sure that that warm-up is long enough. But that's a little bit of an aside. That's not really what I wanted to talk about during this video per se, but just making sure that that warm-up is long enough. There you have it. But I want to talk about this last part when we're talking about openers and we're talking about our warm-up, because I've seen this time and time again. I've experienced it myself, and I've seen this countless times in athletes. Do not judge and make preconceived notions about your performance based on how your opener session and even your warm-up might go. What do I mean by that? Oftentimes, an opener session, you know what? It may not feel great. It may feel a little bit wonky. It may feel like the body's kind of not ready to go and the numbers maybe aren't what they need to be. It might be the same thing with a warm-up. But please do not go into your competition assuming and judging that because of how those sessions went, that you will not have a good performance. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it in athletes and myself where, you know what? A good opener session and a nice solid warm-up was what I needed to knock some of the rust off and really get myself ready to perform. Jumped into the competition, jumped into the race, and the race went just fine. But if we don't give ourselves that mental freedom and emotional freedom to be able to even entertain that possibility of a good performance, then all bets are off. So just make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to say, all right, I understand what that opener session felt like. I understand maybe how that warm-up may have felt, but I'm still going to relax. I'm still going to give myself an opportunity to see what I have when that whistle goes off and when the race actually begins. Give yourself that opportunity because it's there. And because Rome wasn't built in a day, so really an opener session or a warm-up is a very small fraction of the work that you've probably put in to get to that moment in time and to get to that start line. All right, folks, that's what I've got for you for today. Opener session, warm-up, they both should be part of your training plan when you're getting ready for a competition or an event. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are enjoying this content that I'm putting out, trust me, there's more where this came from. So go ahead and subscribe so that you get pinged. You get a nice little notification. You go, this guy Mario's back on. I like what he has to say. Let me tune in. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. Until next time.